Okay, so we're standing in field 3, and just a brief history for field 3. Some of you may recall field 3. It was our control here at the Menoken Farm, the red-headed stepchild of that we used to call it. During the long-term soil monitoring, it was always finishing in last place, and because it was a continuous wheat field since our inception in 2009. So we had 12 years of continuous wheat, and the board decided this last winter that probably was, we'd learned enough from the wheat, and so we took half the field and we fed on half. We did some winter feeding. We had our neighbor come in, and so the half that you're standing on, we fed on. The other half we didn't. He fed on it for, like 8 to 9 days, rolled out bales with a processor until he had it covered. I believe it was about, 240 head or something like that. And our neighbor was kind enough to do that for us. And so that got the jump start going. And then, of course, we seeded this. Our thought was to seed it to something that it didn't have before, right? Because it had a cool season grass on it since forever. And so we decided to go with the sunflowers and the cover crops in a solid seeded fashion. And so you can see on the sheet kind of what we went with the sunflower population, and then most or all of these are broadleaves on this sheet. And we did do one grass herbicide pass on it. And so there's quite a variation from one end of the field to the other, but we thought we'd stop and hear and see, and then we're going to turn and look at the 60-inch corn here when we're done. So we're combining two sites into one. But with that, I think I'll turn it over to the group, and we'll go from there. So, Jimmy?
So at home, we always talk about plan A, B, C, and D, and I heard clear to W a while ago is really what we need. And we do this same thing at home as well. And if I don't know where Ginger's at, but Ginger would tell you that the biggest thing that she likes is when we do fail sunflowers, we love to graze them. And the cattle really do very well. I was grazing here myself. If you really want to understand how cattle graze, you just got to sample it yourselves and all the leaves, and it'll tell you where the bricks is and what they're going to like for today. It's not all about the roots. Sometimes it's all about the leaves. It's also about the roots. Jay pulled this up to show, what we're doing here. We're doing some tillage. We're opening up infiltration points down the road, because as that deteriorates, that's going to leave a void. That's going to be the place for the next plant to grow, because they're going to grow in the least resistance. So if it's too hard, too dry for them to grow, they're going to look for an earthworm pore or somewhere to grow down. Besides, that's where the water and that's where the nutrients are going to be. And that's very important that we look at it that way and think about it. But look at the difference from where we started to here. Some people would say, wow, you got a localized shower here because it doesn't look that dry over here. Once again, as opportunity, this is not showing bad effects of drought here. It's struggling a little, but nothing like the first field that we saw, because the roots got rooted down. And there are some, and Chris is going to talk a little bit more about that here in a little bit. But if you really want to understand animals, that's pretty good, but it's not as good as some of these others. And so I always love to graze around and find out what's really tasting good today. And you can watch animals graze, and they're going to do the same thing. And cattle will really love them big heads when they get to a certain point, and then they'll go to eating them. And we've gained exponential pounds per day on a failed situation just like this with our cattle and weaning calves as well. So very good. I like this, even though Darrell was challenged to put this in. But it is a good mix to have. I've used the same mix myself.
Yeah. Anyway, this is just totally fun and right up my alley here. One thing I noticed about, and if you step into this, how cool this is. The plants are already transpiring, and in this real dry environment and stuff, they're protecting themselves. They're releasing some of that moisture out. So, I mean, you put your hand in there, it just almost makes your hand damp by going through it. Here, this, this would put a lot of my fellow neighbors to shame, some of this, what I've seen down there in Iowa. But anyway, this is under the Belgrays. And when you come up here and look at this, we've got earthworms up there. We've just got dark, carbon in there. I mean, it's just full of life. And another thing, that's the thing, is getting the biology working in our soils. We've destroyed them and we've got away from that. And now what we're seeing, well, this afternoon when we were digging across here, they left one strip up through the middle there that did not have their worm juice, their biological product, applied to it. And it was foliar applied, Jay? Yes, it was foliar applied. It wasn't.
No, I'm sorry, seed.
It was, okay, seed. And that's what I started doing, making my own biologicals, making my own bioreactor, and coming up with a highly fungal compost that I can extract from and inject there. We're starting to see some fantastic things on our corn and soybean crops that I've never seen before. Leaking out exudates and the color of the leaf, and we're doing a lot of leaf tissue analysis, sap analysis to figure out what's going on. But we've really reduced our inputs on there and just have a fantastic looking crop. But anyway, the strip that they did through the middle here that did not have any product applied for it on it, we were out here with our 6-shooters and, taking the spade and digging across there. Well, when we came to that spot, I could only push that spade in, first shovelful, about 4 inches. And I went clear across that, strip where they hadn't done it. And then as soon as you get to where the biology was applied, that spade went in 8-9 inches. And just real easy. And you can kind of tell walking across the ground how spongy it is. And my wife loves our farm now because, if she walks on it, it's cushy. It's got some resilience to it. But that's what's amazing with the biology. We don't give enough credit to that. And a lot of people ask me, how much it costs, to apply my own biological on there, what I'm making. And I said, it's about 25. And they're, $25 an acre. It's kind of steep. I said, no, it's 25 cents an acre, and getting the biology out there. So, like I say, it's amazing when we really study this and figure out what's going on, what we can do to change and to restore these soils. Because otherwise, if anybody has traveled across Iowa, across the middle of the state, Interstate 80 goes there, about halfway across going to Des Moines, there's a rest stop. And the rest stop is based on Wallace Foundation, and it's all on conservation practices. And it has plaques in there and pictures of contour farming, no-till farming, grass waterways, all the good things we've done, through and anyway, outside there's these concrete monoliths, about 18 inches in diameter, and there's 5 of them. And what they represent is how the soil was and how it's progressed. The first one is the year 1850. In the upper Midwest, in the top of this column, it shows 14.5 inches of topsoil. Then it progresses down through the 5 of them. The last one is the year 2000. We're down to 5.5 inches of topsoil. So it's just, when I look at that, it's very frustrating to me, because if we extrapolate that on out, we're going to use up our natural resource in about 40, 50 years. So that's,
We're much better at burning it off now.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do it quicker. Yeah, yeah. With some of the new tillage coming out and all that, it's going faster. But we just can't go there. In my lifetime, I'm hoping to see they put up a column that goes the other way. Say no, these guys got it. The spark went off, and people, around here, let's do something different. Start out and get together with people and share ideas, and don't jump off the cliff by yourself. Take a partner with you. So, anyway.
I think cows would really do nice in here. No, the plan here, I think, is to let this grow up, and then we'll harvest the sunflowers off, and then once the sunflowers are harvested off, then we'll have all this undergrowth underneath, and that's what we will graze then, and that's going to be a later type cool season. A lot of these are radishes, some buckwheats. Buckwheat won't stop until it freezes, and with all this material and that overstory and understory, that gives a thermal kind of layer to it too. So sometimes you'll freeze the sunflowers and they'll start to die, but everything underneath it, depending on your frosts and that kind of thing, everything underneath it won't freeze necessarily, and you'll have some green grass or green plants, not grass, pretty late in the season sometimes to graze. But yeah, later in the season, you'll still have your animals out on pretty good green grazing crops. In fact, sometimes you even have to give them some straw or something like that to even them out a little bit, because they're really going to go after that green crop. And then this was sprayed with a grass herbicide. No, I can't find one. But there is some kochia. There's one right there. I think that's 30% protein. It's poor man's alfalfa. That doesn't, just because there's some kochia there doesn't mean you can't let your cattle graze it. They'll eat it. Especially, there's some areas, low areas in fields that you see and stuff like that. Get those cattle out in there and they'll graze that. They'll utilize something that you don't think you can. Yeah. I guess that's all I got here. So.
I guess the one thing I'll touch on is the livestock integration to your cropland. We've done quite a bit of bale grazing, and I try to always feed on cropland if possible, just because I think we got quite a bit of nitrogen and phosphorus and a lot of fertility that they applied themselves, right? And then we don't have to spread the manure; they do it for us. Saves on labor, saves on a bunch of our input costs, right? I'm on the I'm kind of on the bandwagon of let the cow do it. The cow works for me. I don't work for the cows, so we need to make them work a little harder than we have in the past. But it's just incredible. We got some spots back here that are about 4 inches thick of residue armor, and look at how the little bit of rain we did catch, it held it, and now it's coming up as green forage, and I'd just be itching to get some yearlings in here. You wouldn't want to stand behind them, that's for sure. So, Steve, you want to add anything?
All right. One of the things I noticed in this one right away when I got here is the Phacelia. You guys all know what Phacelia? I love Phacelia. But there's a problem with it. It sometimes breaks my heart. No? Phacelia, you're breaking my heart. Come on. No? Them? Come on. Okay. Well, you're going to remember the name of it now, aren't you? Okay. Actually, the reason why I love it, one, it's pretty, like my wife. I'd get brownie points if she was here, but she's not. It's pretty, but pollinators love it. The other thing about Phacelia is that it is highly mycorrhizal. Mycorrhizae fungi love this stuff, and introduces it, brings it in, and allows the other plants to benefit from it as well. So Phacelia is one of my favorites to put in with a cover crop when I'm doing it too. Real good for anybody who doesn't know what mycorrhizae fungi is. It's a network of fungus, arbuscules, and hyphae that interact between the plants and actually exchange nutrients back and forth. Right? It can find really good at finding phosphorus. Right? Phosphorus is always bound up in the soil. Well, no, it's not if you have mycorrhizae fungi in your soil. Okay, a really important part of the biology is the fungus. So yeah, I really like having that in here. So this one's doing a lot better than the other ones, like we said. Could we go through a list? What types of root systems does it have? Does it have annuals? Okay. Does it have perennials? Okay. Does it have legumes? Peas, right? Does it have forbs? This would be a forb, wouldn't it? Sunflower? Or broadleaf? Okay. Does it have taproots?
Yes.
Definitely the radish and the
Sunflower.
yeah. Where was I at now? Taproots. Bunch grasses. Right. We're missing the grasses, right? We sprayed them out. Okay. So personally, I probably would have made sure that I had some grasses in here too. C3 plants, most of them. Any C4 plants? So a C4 plant is a 4-carbon plant, likes the heat. C3 is a 3-carbon plant that doesn't like the heat, if anybody's not sure. So I'd like to see the C4s in here as well. I did so Japanese millet, sorghum, corn, right? Those are types of C4 plants. They don't have to have very many of them in, but just have that root system that, joins in and helps. Because all these plants can share, right? They get that mycorrhizae fungi that joins all these root systems together, and they start sharing nutrients. They start sharing information. If you've got a healthy system of mycorrhizae fungi in the soil, plants actually talk to each other through that mycorrhizae fungi. They've proven it when they've done the experiments with mycorrhizae fungi. They'll introduce a disease or a pest to this plant, and all of a sudden this plant over here will start getting up a defense to it, right? It hasn't even been shown it. So it actually communicates. It's like the highway of the soil. It's moving nutrients back and forth, but it's also the internet of the soil. It's moving information back and forth. So really important to have a mycorrhizal plants in your crops as well.
Any questions, comments for the group?
I got a question. How many dragonflies or damselflies have you seen so far? I've seen lots. They're an apex predator in the insect world, so to have apex predators, that's a good sign. Okay, I'm not seeing a lot of insects out here. I've seen some ladybugs. I've seen some predaceous ground beetles. Seen some quite a few damselflies, a few dragonflies. Yeah. So one of the tools we have, or one of the key things that you need to do when you come out to a field, is observe. Right? You need to look and what's happening out here. To me, we're lacking dragonflies. I think I've only seen 2. I'd like to see a lot more, but we need riparian area management. Little background on dragonflies. They're one of my favorites. An adult dragonfly only lives for about 2 weeks. That's as long as they live. So how many generations or how many hatchings of dragonflies do we need in a season to control our pests? Right? Quite a few all season long. Now the downside to that is, depending on the species, the aquatic nymph stage, so when they're a teenager, they live in the water. They're a water bug. That aquatic nymph stage of a dragonfly can be up to anywhere between 2 and 4 years long. So it could take up to 4 years of good riparian area management to get an adult that does the benefit for you for 2 weeks. Okay, talk about a long breeding cycle, eh? So I'm very cautious, or very proactive on building and taking care of riparian areas. That's one of the most important things I do on my ranch. Again, it's about what? Water. That's my most important nutrient, and for all those reasons. Spiders also need good riparian areas. So yeah. Anybody else? So what kind of things do I do for riparian areas? Lots of times I'll build them. I bought a backhoe a few years ago. I've never actually owned a tractor. I've been ranching for 25 years. I've never owned a tractor, but I did buy a backhoe a couple years ago just for riparian area management. I build dams. I help the beaver. When the county comes along and blows a beaver dam, I'll sneak in there and rebuild it and build it back up. I've been in the county chambers a few times with my hair standing on the back of my neck, and they were thinking about calling the cops. So yeah, all over a beaver dam. So yeah, I like to build, like, find a good spot, right? Beavers need to be managed, right? If we've lost the predator, yes, beavers can take over and cause a lot of damage. But if we manage them, if we create an area that's like the one I did was in a kind of a gully, right? So we backed up thousands and thousands and thousands of gallons of water, and almost lost no land because it was in the right spot. So give them the proper place, and they're going to do us lots of benefit. I mean, that beaver dam alone on that one piece of property I'm thinking about right now has saved me this year from hauling water, because all my other dugouts are dry, almost dry, and it's still full. So.
Yep. Yep. No, I used to. About 03 was our last year on cattle. Yeah. Since I was out of the cattle business, and that was the missing thing, is livestock, and so I focused on the underground livestock, and coming around. Yeah, cattle is the elite thing on top of that. Yes.